Have you ever felt like you are giving everything in a relationship? Your energy, your emotional support, your patience, and somehow it is still never enough? Like no matter how much you pour in, the relationship always feels depleted. Like you are nurturing a partner who rarely nurtures back. Like you are in a relationship with someone who needs you to be everything, but struggles to show up for you in return. If that feels familiar, what comes next may be the most important thing you hear today. Because what you are experiencing may not be a love problem. It may not even be a communication problem. It may be something called the mother wound. And until it is understood and healed, it will quietly drain the life out of every relationship it touches. The mother wound is the unhealed emotional pain that comes from not receiving the love, nurturing, and emotional attunement a child needed from their mother or primary caregiver in early childhood. It is not about blame. It is not about deciding whether a mother was good or bad. Most mothers did the best they could with what they had. But here is the truth. A child's nervous system does not grade on effort. It registers what was present and what was absent. And when consistent nurturing, emotional safety, and attunement were absent, for whatever reason, the child's development is shaped around that absence. That child grows up. But the wound does not automatically grow with them. Instead, it gets carried, often unconsciously, into every significant relationship that follows. And in romantic relationships, it tends to surface in a very specific and very painful way. The grown man with an unhealed mother wound begins to look for his mother in his partner, not consciously, not deliberately. But the unmet need from childhood, the need to be nourished, held, emotionally supported, unconditionally accepted, gets projected onto the woman he is with. And she, without realizing it, steps into a role she was never meant to fill. The mother wound does not announce itself. It shows up in patterns. And those patterns over time become exhausting. He takes more than he gives. Not because he is selfish by nature, but because beneath the surface is a little boy with an enormous unmet need. That need is a void, and voids consume. He draws on her emotional energy, her reassurance, her support, and the giving rarely flows back in equal measure. He needs her to be emotionally available, but struggles to be emotionally available for her. He needs to be heard, validated, and supported. But when she needs the same, when she is struggling, when she needs him to hold space for her, he often cannot access it, because his own unmet need is too loud. There is no surplus to give from. This is the core of it. Partnership requires two adults who can mutually support, challenge, and grow with each other. But a man operating from an unhealed mother wound is not fully in adult consciousness in the relationship. Part of him is still that little boy, seeking the nourishment he never received. And you cannot have an equal partnership with someone who is unconsciously relating to you as a parent. He may also be emotionally immature in very specific ways. Not across the board. He may be highly functional in work, in friendships, in many areas of life. But in intimate relationship, where the mother wound is most activated, his emotional maturity stalls at the age the wound was formed. He may struggle to regulate his emotions, to take accountability, to tolerate her needs without feeling overwhelmed or threatened. When a woman is in a relationship with a man carrying an unhealed mother wound, she often becomes the emotional regulator of the entire relationship. She manages his moods. She softens her needs so as not to overwhelm him. She gives reassurance, support, and nurturing, consistently, generously, while quietly starving for the same in return. Over time, this creates a specific kind of exhaustion, not just tiredness, but a deep depletion, a draining of vitality, of joy, of the aliveness she brought into the relationship. That aliveness slowly gets consumed by the weight of holding everything together. And the painful irony is that she often does not recognize what is happening until she is already running on empty. Because she loves him. Because she can see his potential. Because she believes that if she just gives a little more, something will shift. But more giving does not heal a wound. It can actually enable it, by removing the discomfort that might otherwise motivate him to seek healing. She was never meant to be his mother. And trying to be, even with the best intentions, costs her herself. Once this pattern is named, the instinct is to think, well, now that we know, he can just choose to be different. It does not work that way. The mother wound is not a conscious choice. It is a developmental gap, a place where emotional growth was interrupted because the conditions for it were not present. You cannot willpower your way out of a developmental gap any more than you can decide to skip a stage of physical development. What happened in childhood shaped the nervous system. It created patterns of relating that are deeply wired, automatic, fast, and largely unconscious. They do not respond to good intentions. They respond to real, sustained inner work. This is also why the relationship itself cannot be the healing container. A romantic partner, no matter how loving, how patient, how emotionally intelligent, cannot provide what a mother was meant to provide in early childhood. The wound predates the relationship. It has to be healed outside of it. So what does healing the mother wound actually look like for a man? It starts with awareness, the willingness to look honestly at the pattern, to stop blaming the relationship or the woman for the emptiness he feels, and to begin asking, where does this actually come from? It requires grief. Real grief for what was not received in childhood. Not resentment toward the mother, but genuine mourning for the little boy who needed something that was not available. That grief, when it is allowed to move through, begins to release the hold the wound has. It requires reparenting, learning to provide for himself the emotional nourishment he has been seeking from others, building the capacity to self-regulate, to self-soothe, to meet his own emotional needs rather than outsourcing them entirely to his partner. And it often requires professional support, therapy, somatic work, men's groups, or coaching that specifically addresses developmental wounds. This is not work that can be done alone, and it is not work that a romantic partner can facilitate. The goal is not to become someone who does not need connection or support. The goal is to become a man who can give and receive in equal measure, who can be present for her needs because he is no longer consumed by his own unmet ones, who can show up as a partner, not as a child seeking a mother. If you are recognizing the signs of this in your relationship, here is what matters most. You cannot heal this for him. You can love him. You can support him. You can encourage him toward the work. But you cannot do the work for him, and trying to will cost you more than you can afford to give. Your needs matter. Your emotional safety matters. Your depletion is real, and it deserves to be taken seriously. Not managed around, not minimized, not sacrificed indefinitely on the altar of his potential. You are not his mother. You were never meant to be. And the most loving thing you can do, for both of you, is to be honest about what this dynamic is, what it costs, and what would actually need to change for the relationship to become something mutual. That conversation is hard, but it is far less costly than years of quiet depletion. The mother wound is one of the most common and least talked about dynamics in adult relationships. It operates beneath the surface. It does not look like obvious dysfunction. It looks like love, but love that flows in one direction, love that drains instead of replenishes. Until a man reclaims and heals the little boy inside him, until he does the real work of filling that void from within rather than drawing it from the woman he is with, the pattern will continue, in this relationship and in every one that follows. But healing is possible. The wound is not permanent. And a man who does this work becomes capable of something extraordinary, a relationship built on genuine mutuality, on giving and receiving, on two adults who choose each other from wholeness rather than from need. That is what is on the other side of this work, and it is worth everything it takes to get there.